This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Friday, October the 24th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams producing the Come On With It edition of the show. So if you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue and on the air, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86. 26, so a welcome drop of rain out there this morning. Was pouring pretty hard earlier, but when we talk about people's wells drying up and water reservoirs and municipalities drying up, probably a welcome sight for many here this morning. And of course, here we go, the World Series. Gotta say, I'm pretty excited for tonight. Now we'll get through the show here. First, obviously, you know, when you look at the tale of Trey Savage, it's really truly remarkable. On the 8th of April, he pitched in what they call single A ball, low A ball, the entry level of professional baseball. And on the 24th of October, he started Game 1 of the World Series. It's absolutely unbelievable. Now, American pundits are giving the Jays absolutely no chance whatsoever. Look, the Dodgers are, on paper, the very best team in baseball, defending World Series champions. I don't know if the Jays have a chance. I'm cautiously optimistic, but here's a couple of interesting historical context stats. The League Championship Series went to a best-of-7 back in 1985. In 1988, 2006, 2007, and 2012, one team swept their LCS. The Dodgers swept the Brewers. One team went 7. The Jays went 7. In all 4 previous occurrences, the team that went 7 won the World Series. So, apropos of very little, but anyway, let's go get them tonight. And imagine, one of the questions the Jays have to ask themselves, what to do with one of the best hitters in baseball, Bo Bichette? Like, you know, the lineup, you don't want to rock the boat, but you can't keep Bo Bichette out of it, can you? Anyway, I'm pretty pumped, as you can tell. All right, congratulations. Go get him to the Munn Seahawks on the women's soccer side. Zoe Rowe, again, the MVP of the AUS. She scored in the 79th minute last night on a clinical setup by Jen Milligan. They beat Acadia 1-0 on to play Dalhousie today in the semis of the AUS. Go get them, ladies. All right, for Newfoundland Regiment fans, here come the St. John Sea Dogs, one of the toughest teams in the queue. A couple of locals behind the bench. Head coach Travis Crickert, assistant coach Mark Lee. So we'll see a couple of locals as opponents here this evening. Okay. Did you see the story yesterday about the FBI arrest and all this gambling, illegal poker games, what have you? Look, for starters, I get kind of annoyed with all of the ads for betting applications on your phone when you're trying to watch the ball game or the hockey game or what have you. But now that sports has welcomed in the betting apps and betting organizations, it's going to cannibalize itself. It's just out of control. We've already seen people banned for life, like a Toronto Raptors player banned for life because they were manipulating the prop bets. Same thing here. So there's Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups has been arrested. One of the starting players for the Miami Heat has been arrested. And what they're doing is they see the stat lines, they see the prop bets, and so before they get a chance to hit their target for points or minutes or what have you, they take themselves out of the game, pretend they're injured. And so consequently, when that happens, people are laying down enormous amounts of money. So inside of this arrest of some 30 plus people, the NBA is in complete upheaval here now this morning. So sports, pro sports, they're doing it to themselves. You know, when people who enjoy watching sports run out of faith that the game isn't rigged, because some of them obviously are rigged, and it's unbelievable. Then they talk about X-ray tables, card counting machines or card shuffling machines that are rigged. It's wild. And the direct connection with mafia families, I mean, they're talking about tens of millions of dollars, wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, gambling. The schemes involve the Bonanno family, the Gambino family, the Lucchesi family, and the Genovese families. So sports is going to find itself in a wicked bad spot because of the amount of money that's being gambled and the manipulation of it. It's just unreal. All right, more important stuff. So Matt Barter, local activist, and of course kicked up some pretty big stinks over at Memorial University, and fair enough. He's gone through access to information one more time, looking for some details surrounding the 10-year roadmap for education that we call the Education Accord. We know it's been tripped up here, and people are really questioning the validity or the credibility when CBC Radio unveiled or revealed the fact that there was at least 15 fake citations. You know, people will ask questions as to whether or not it was a necessary exercise in the first place, but now we'll look at the cost. Cost is important. The actual transformation and the modernization of education is more important, but all right, $755,852 spent on the plan. Over $350,000 on consulting professional services, over $303,000 on salaries, $80,000 for a marketing firm for whatever unspecified work, over $12,000 on travel, $7,000 plus on purchase services, $1,600 on office supplies. It really does boil down to the fate of the report. So Tony Wickham says he's not going to reject or accept in full without a careful review, and that's the right play. But try to take some action on some of the very important recommendations. That's the most important thing. And again, to know that there was very little to no discussion about education on the campaign trail makes absolutely zero sense. But we can and should be looking at how they're going to deal with that education accord. All the money spent in some 18 months and the contribution by countless people to try to help out on that front, madness. All right. Wildfire rebuild. Every single morning when I open my email, I get an email from someone who was on the poor end, the bad end of the CBN, the North Shore fire. Maybe lost their home or their business or whatever the case may be. Now in the city of St. John's, while people were fighting the fires out around Paddy's Pond, of course they had to be diverted back into St. John's because this one young fella, 20-year-old kid, he was setting brush fires. The allegation is he was accused of setting several brush fires in town. Apparently the RNC are sluggish in handing over some CCTV video to the defense lawyer, who's Jeff Brace, so there's now another delay. He's facing pretty serious charges here. 3 charges of arson with disregard for human life, and of course a $150,000 fine, of which at the tender age of 20, unlikely, unless supported by whomever, that he has $150,000 kicking around. So we'll see what happens on that case. But again, we're all actively trying to find out and can't get any formal acknowledgement from the RCMP that there is ongoing investigation into the potential for arson to spark the Kingston fire. But so let's go, RNC. Let's get that videotape in the hands of Mr. Brace so we can proceed with that particular action. All right. So every time that we talk about groceries, it's very similar reaction. As the grocery shopper, you listening, you know how exhausting and painful it is to go to the grocery store. And now we know from Stats Canada, 4% increase in the price of groceries September over September, year over year. So what I get in the form of emails, more often than not, is what is the government going to do about it? It's a good question, but I would also ask this one. What can they do about it? If we're talking about support for local agriculture, who went through a very tough, dry, hot season, whether we talk about seed money or loans, repayable loans for upfront costs to establish more hydroponic facilities right around the province. But then it's the concept of controlling prices in the stores. Look, when you hear people talk about communism and socialism and Marxism and all the isms that they probably don't understand, but they say them all the time, do we really want the government in the stores with that type of exercise? I'll leave it up to you, and I welcome your call on it. It's not like it hasn't happened in the democratic first world, the modernized world. France, they took a 3-month anti-inflation quarter, they called it, and they put price caps on some 5,000 items. They were relatively careful in how they approached what necessities they would cap prices on in the grocery store, but I'll leave it up to you. What do you think governments can or should do regarding price? Additional financial support for Canadians is different than trying to control prices in what we refer to as the free market, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, grocery prices are back in the news, and I get questions all the time about government intervention or inaction, but I'm not exactly sure what you think we could or should be doing on that front. All right, how we doing out there, David? Let's get it going here today. When we get reports from think tanks, it would be helpful, regardless of what lean they have on the political spectrum, if they were a little more precise. And that includes this story this morning. It's a report coming from the Montreal Economic Institute. Here's what they said in sort of blanket fashion. For every 100 new nurses under the age of 35 in this province who entered the profession in 2023, 98 others left. That's a pretty skewed number. Don't take it from me, take it from Yvette Coffey at the Registered Nurses Union. She went on to say the report's numbers The report numbers comprises nurses who had received the renewed license with the college, which includes nurses in private practices, managers, private contract agency nurses. So they are skewed, but it does speak to the retention issue. I remember several conversations with Yvette, and we talk about the 2 R's, recruitment and retention. And of course, unless you can successfully recruit, you don't have to worry about retention. But Miss Coffey always pushed back. She's right. She's absolutely right. The retention issue is a massive problem here. So whether or not the numbers are skewed, which they very much seem to be, it's about what we're doing here. The high turnover, the rates of overtime, violence, abuse is obviously not an attractive workplace for so many young nurses. So whether they leave to go work for a travel agency or whether they leave the profession, the issue is real. I mean, we get some updated numbers every now and then about just how many registered nurses vacancies there are in the province, and there continues to be hundreds. So, again, for all of these think tanks, the work is important, the research is important, the reports are important, but unless they're delivered with a little bit more precision, then they really are misleading. So it's not as plain as every 100 nurses in equals 98 out. So, I mean, you never catch up if that was the actual, real, legitimate, hard, fast numbers. Oh, yesterday I had a call about the province of British Columbia actively recruiting healthcare professionals in British Columbia, which is a thing. And I was mentioning whether or not we're doing the same thing, for instance, through the Premier's office in Boston. Apparently, we have had some active recruitment in the United States, and I appreciate the young lady sending this along. We had a team of recruiters in Chicago. I'm not so sure if it was a one-off or a conference or a more active extended stay in Chicago or anywhere else in the States to recruit, but I seem to think it's a pretty good idea. If it's happening elsewhere, it should be happening here. What do you think? All right, let's get through a few more before we get to you. People will be keeping an eye on Ottawa and the Prime Minister, who's on his way to Asia for some trade negotiations. We'll get into more trade here in a second. We know the next wave of major projects that are going to be on the fast-track list, so to speak, is coming before Grey Cup Day, which is hosted by Winnipeg. Winnipeg's 9-8 in the CFL. That means nothing. And so we anticipate that there may be an opportunity for some of the projects in this province to make those lists. I think people were bemoaning the fact that no projects in this province made the initial 5-project list, but people talk about the obvious. Bay du Nord, Gull Island, and Strange Lake. So when we talk about shovel-ready, I think all 3 are absolutely that, but will we see any action here? So, and again, Gull. I know people are maybe worn out hearing about and talking about the same old things, but when you're talking about the impact, financially speaking, regarding the potential for contracts, definitive agreements between this province and Quebec, you know the deal. And I think we just got to keep it out there for the obvious reasons. On that front, in regards of electricity and the delivery of, in New Brunswick, and this is fascinating, because there's been some clamoring in this province for the installation or the utilization of smart meters, so that you have up-to-date, to-the-minute understanding of your electricity consumption in the house and for the utility. In New Brunswick, they're on the pathway to install these new smart meters. So now, the numbers of people that are rejecting smart meters has grown to 17,000. They mentioned some pretty bizarre things, maybe privacy invasion or what have you. But now New Brunswick Power is talking about levying a $5 fee per month so that they can go read your meter versus just capture the information from your smart meter. I'm not really 100% sure some of the merit in the rejection here. People are talking about health concerns. You can look around and find every bit of information possible on the World Wide Web. There's no scientific evidence that there's any such thing as a problem with smart meters and your health. They talk about the radio frequency. It's so far lower than any risk to human health, but yet people are using that as a rationale to push back against the potential for a $5 fine. So the smart meter conversation had lots of traction here in this province for a while, seemingly gone by the wayside, but there you go. Okay, let's get into it. So, trade, and I mean, political slogans bore me, as you know, and the whole elbows up bit and all the rest of it. So, because we've already received a couple of preemptive whiny emails from the same old local Trump supporters, the petulance is just unbelievable. So now, trade talks between Canada and the United States are over. Stalled. Done. Why? Because Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, and his government threw $75 million worth of sponsoring an ad, which is pretty much a clip of Ronald Reagan, a radio address back in the 80s, talking about how tariffs are a very poor idea. Now, some of the audio was somewhat taken out of context. Now, Reagan was certainly about free trade, but in that same radio address, he was about to announce tariffs on Japan. But he also went on to say that tariffs should be used as a surgical tool with precision versus the blanket tariffs that we've been talking about coming from the United States, coming from the Oval Office. So now trade talks are done because of that. So I think it's pretty clear. It's not about national security. It's not about trade deficits. It's not about fentanyl. It's not about migrants. It's about ego. That and that alone. It's about petulance. It's not about trying to do best for the American people. It's just trying to be the biggest bully on the block, which comes by nature if you're the president of the United States, the most powerful man on the face of the earth. So trade talks are over. Why? Because he didn't like an ad on TV. Don't take it from me. That's his exact words. So taking a task, saying it's all fake and all the rest of it. How was anybody supposed to negotiate? For starters, we had a deal in good faith that the president signed himself, saying it was a great deal, and he tore it up. Why? Because his new favorite word is tariff, even though he seemingly doesn't know how they work. But here we are. So obviously the Prime Minister's trip to Asia and expanding markets and diversifying markets so that we can reduce our reliance on our American partners, once reliable partners, no longer. So you could be a supporter of Trump all you like, but can we not acknowledge just how pathetic and ridiculous this is? He didn't like an ad on television, and so trade talks are done. That's it. Amazing. How's anybody supposed to negotiate in good faith? And you can be a Trump supporter all you like, but if you can't admit that his own words last night about why there will be no more trade talks for now with Canada because of that. We're on Twitter or VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. And for those who already sent the preemptive whiny emails, keep them coming. Twitter. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's begin this morning on line number 2. Good morning, Dave. You're on the air.
Yes, Paddy, I was listening to you the other day, and you mentioned about 1960, okay, a team that won the World Series.
Pirates.
Now, Pittsburgh Pirates, right, but I think that was 1959. And Bill Mazeroski struck the home run. They were right down to the last pitch. And they won it. They came up. They had let me see. There was 3 out. They had 3 balls, Tom, and 2 strikes, and it was right down to the last pitch. And he pitched it in, and Bill Mazeroski, he struck it and drove it right out and batted in 4 runs, and won the World Series.
Now, I have lived my whole life thinking that was 1960. Are you sure it's 59?
59, yeah, as far as I can remember. Anyway,
you might be right, but if it is not 60, then I've said that incorrectly, I don't know, 100 times in my life.
And wrong name, but it was Bill Mazeroski. He struck it, and it came at so much tension. It came right down to the last pitch. Because the other team, I think it was the Yankees, they were hit by 1, and then when he hit her, he batted in 4 runs and won the World Series. It
was the first time the Pirates had won since 1925 when Mazeroski hit that home run. There's only 2 World Series in history have been ended with a home run, Mazeroski's and Joe Carter.
Yeah.
In 93.
That's right, yeah. But anyway, so there's still young fella coming up now. The night his name eludes me now. He's only 22 now. The other night he struck out 9 or 10 or something right in a row. So he's no slouch.
No, he's certainly not. But just imagine, in April he pitched in front of 324 people at low A ball, and now he's starting Game 1 of the World Series in the same year. His rookie season is next year. It's an amazing story. It really is. I don't know how he's going to do tonight. I mean, the Dodgers are a pretty tough team offensively, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think the manager, their manager's changing the pitchers too often. They should stay with him. Let him play as long as he can, and I think he have a good chance to win the World Series for him.
Well, Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers.
If I was the manager, I'd be using him. That because you can't beat youth.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. And, I mean, of course, the Dodgers pitching, oh, my God. I mean, they looked unhittable against the Brewers. But the Jays have been swinging the bats pretty good. So, a lot going on tonight. And just one quick comment. Whether or not it's 59 or 60 when the Pirates won against the Yankees, the MVP was a guy named Bobby Richardson of the Yankees. It's the only time in history where a player from the losing team won the MVP.
Perhaps it might have been because I went up north 1960. I thought it was 59. You know,
yeah, I'll have a look during the break.
6 years ago, so it's a good while ago, right?
Yeah, and I mean, there was a bunch of Hall of Famers played in that series. Two on the Pirates, of course, Mazeroski, and the late great Roberto Clemente was a Pirate that year too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mickey Mantle played for the Yankees then.
It makes it really interesting, I can tell you that. But you never know. You never know what can happen. And, you know, all the Blue Jays have to forget about who they're playing.
Exactly.
Just like another treat them as another team and go on in there and do the best you can. And stranger things have happened.
They're playing with house money. No one thought they were going to be a World Series contender this year, but here they are with a shot.
Yeah. Well, no one might think that they can win either, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll all find out. It'll certainly find out what happens in Game 1 tonight. Can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Anyway, Paddy, it was nice talking to you.
My pleasure. Thanks for the call, Dave.
Okay, right.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah, that Yankee team, Mickey Mantle, Whitey Ford, Yogi Berra was on that team. Anyway, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 1 and say good morning to Lisa Loveless Hodder. Good morning, Lisa. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How about you?
I'm pretty good. I'm really excited about what I'm calling about today. So, some of you may know my son Jake Anstey passed away last year on November 2nd, 2024, at the age of 11 years old. And we're coming up on the 1-year mark of losing Jake. So what his family has decided to do is create what we're calling Jake's Force Day. So Force as in the Star Wars. And Jake loves Star Wars. So in memory of Jake's family wants to ask his community and people who heard his story and were moved by his story to, sorry, it's a little bit emotional.
Take your time.
So Jake was our Jedi, essentially. And in Star Wars, there's a belief that when someone passes, you become one with the Force. So your light, energy, and love stays in the universe. So what we want to ask people to do is on November 2nd to do random acts of kindness for the people around them in Jake's name. So some ideas would be like buying a copy for someone, writing a note, donating to a cause that's important to you. We also want to say that these acts of kindness can be kindness to yourself. So self-care, smiling at someone, that kind of thing. So during Jake's journey after his cardiac arrest, his family and him were shown immense acts of kindness by the community. For example, when we had trouble with wheelchair accessible transport, we were given a wheelchair van by Get Messy and Bercy's bus service. And so there is a Facebook page if you're interested. It's called Jake's Force Day. It's open to everyone. And you can find it through my profile if you need to. And I also wanted to say that there's already been acts of kindness for this event happening. For example, last weekend in Hermitage, Fortune Bay, a group of people got together and built a shelter for the stray cats that were living near the dump. Now, Jake loved cats, and he also loved Star Wars. So they have built this luxury shelter that's insulated and vented, has individual rooms for the cats, and they named it Jake's Jabba Hut. Get it? Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars. Yeah, so I just really wanted the opportunity, and I'm sorry if I sound emotional, but I just wanted the opportunity to get more word out there that on November 2nd, we will be mourning the loss of our son, but we also want it to be something to honor him because he was so kind and fun-loving, and all of his friends would tell you that he was the peacemaker in the group.
and no apologies required. It's obviously an emotional topic. So we know that Jake, he loved Star Wars and he was kind. Tell us a story about Jake. Just give us one memory.
Oh my, one memory. Let me see. Okay, well, I can tell you a story about him and his friends. They were playing Fortnite, and they were all in their respective homes, so they had their headsets on, and they were talking. And then there was some squabbling because someone eliminated another of the friends. And so they started bickering back and forth on the headphones. And I hear Jake's voice from the living room. He pipes up, and he says, "Guys, it's just a game. If you keep fighting, I'm getting off." And then they all calmed down and just started playing peacefully again. And I believe they were actually playing Star Wars, or no, sorry, it was Fortnite. Yeah, it was Fortnite they were playing at that time.
I really appreciate making time for the program. And, you know, as they say, it costs nothing to be kind. But going out of your way to be kind in memory of 11-year-old Jake and trying to support the family through your own individual acts of kindness, it's not only welcomed on the receiving end, but we all know an act of kindness can also be very, very beneficial to your overall attitude and mental well-being when you are the kind person. Lisa, I appreciate the time here this morning. Thanks for doing it.
Oh, you're very welcome, and we look forward to seeing what everyone does on November 2nd.
I'll have one up my sleeve for sure. It's also my wife's birthday on November 2nd, so there we go. I really appreciate this, Lisa. Thanks for doing it, and feel free to give us another reminder call, or someone belonging to the family can do this next week, and we can do it again.
Absolutely. I can give you a call next week.
I appreciate it. Thank you for this.
All right. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jake's Force Day, November the 2nd. Let's take a break right on time. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the MHA elect in St. John's East, Kitty Vitti, representing the NDP. That's Sheila O'Leary. Sheila, you're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Patty. Thanks so much for taking my call.
Happy to do it.
I just wanted to, well, first of all, I just wanted to follow up. What a beautiful legacy. I just love the proposed acts of kindness on November 2nd in Jake's memory. That's beautiful. I mean, we should be doing that stuff anyway, but what a legacy to a young man's wonderful life, and so I think that's very exciting. So just wanted to, you know, certainly give a shout out to the family and friends in that effort. But Patty, I never got a chance to call you, speak to you and your listeners since E-Day. I spoke with Tim, but I just really wanted to give a call to give a huge shout out of gratitude to the people of St. John's East, Kitty Vitti, for their support, the trust in me, and to bring the NDP back into this district. It was a very moving and incredibly positive campaign. So many volunteers, as we know, that goes into all the work and guts and everything that goes into a campaign, you know, food donations, canvassing, you know, financial donations, all of it. It takes a village, right? So I just want to give a huge shout out to everybody, because it's not a one-person effort. It's a team. So, and I'm so looking forward to working with the NDP leader, Jim Dinn, right? So I just wanted to call in and also to congratulate and acknowledge all the municipal and provincial people who stepped up to serve in the recent elections. It's not just, obviously, you know, from my vantage point, coming from municipal at the City of St. John's as former deputy mayor, I'm just so excited to see all of the younger people coming forward. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about that in the news, about the younger set that have been elected, and that's so exciting for our future. So just wanted to acknowledge everybody who offered themselves in the election, you know, because it's so important. We uphold the democracy.
Sure, and congratulations on your success in St. John's East, Kitty Vitti. You've taken a few swings, and now you get the opportunity to sit in the House of Assembly. Let's dig into a couple of actual issues here while we have time here this morning. I think on my subject line, I believe it says nursing. Is that what you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, the nursing, well, obviously, you know, our leader put out, and the caucus put out an immediate release yesterday. Of course, that was about ending the travel nurses in the first month of the PC government. So, you know, that was heavily discussed on the campaign trail about the exorbitant cost and the wastage that certainly happened, and the disrespect certainly to our own nurses. There's no reason why we can't continue to improve the nurses' working conditions here, strengthen their autonomy, and give them more control over their schedule. There's ways to do this without throwing money, out the door and the travel nurses. So that's a call that certainly our leader, Jim Dinn, put out regarding the new PC government, was to basically end the travel nurses, and let's see what's going to happen, how we're going to plan the end of that, and of course how we're going to support our public workforce.
As an idea, it sounds about right, and we don't know an up-to-date number about how many travel nurses are currently in the system. But how do you end something versus how do you phase it out? Because I think when I hear people say, "Well, let's just do away with travel nurses," okay. But, for instance, when Tom Osborne was the Minister of Health and Community Services, being peppered about this issue, and the comments would be maybe exaggerated, coming back and saying, well, do you want clinics and hospitals to close? Because without the travel agency nurses, that's what would be the outcome. So I don't know how much exaggeration might be included in there, but if you let every single travel nurse go today, I'm not so sure it comes across as pragmatic operations of healthcare. So what's the plan? And that's what no one's been able to offer.
Well, I mean, everything is about transition, Patty. We're talking about moving from, areas where we're seeing absolute wastage. And, we've been talking to the nurses for quite some time. I know I have been, certainly on the campaign trail. I mean, I can't say that I've, again, I'm not sworn in yet, remember. I've got to get onboarded and training and all the rest. We're awaiting the Premier Designate, Tony Wakeham, and congratulations to him and his team. Look forward to getting in there and getting the work done. But right now, all I can kind of weigh in on is what I've heard at the doors and the conversations that I've had with people and nurses, and the exorbitant waste, and how there's so much work that can be done internally to help them have more control, especially over their scheduling. That has been something that I've heard, time and time again. So, there's no on-off light switch happening here, Patty. We know that. Look, that's the same thing when we're talking about climate action and transition as well, too, in that regard. The reality is that we have to have a just transition. And so now that we have a majority government, and we want to hear what the plan is from the PC government about this kind of transition, so that we can be more sustainable, so that we can be more, effective with our finances, but also more respectful to the nurses who are doing the work. So that's a transition process, and that dialogue has to happen sooner than later. And I'm excited about that. And of course, and we're also hearing about the education accord, same kind of thing, more money going into that. These are all going to be topics that are going to be heavily discussed, I'm sure, the minute that the House opens. So, but at this stage, I'm onboarding. I'm looking forward to getting trained. Obviously, there's a transition from my municipal, governance to provincial. It is very different, and I look forward to that. As a lifelong learner, I'm ready to serve, and I'm very, very excited. It was such a positive campaign, and a little bit of tough love as we move forward, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, the ideas are great. Detailed ideas are better. Action plans are even better than that. And milestones that we can check to make sure we're on the right track, even better again. So if it's expand the nursing school by 50 seats, probably a very good idea. And when we talk about, actively putting job opportunities in front of nurses as they go through their training, so that they know there's a job at the other end, and it's a job that's offered as full-time permanent, not part-time, not casual, permanent full-time jobs. I mean, and that is, once again, conceptually sounds good, but at the same time, we had nurses on the casual list that were incentivized to the tune of thousands of dollars to become permanent full-time, and they didn't want to do it because they lost that control of their schedule. So again, complex issues really require complex solutions, and this is not aimed at you, that's aimed at the operations of healthcare. Appreciate the time, Sheila. Anything else quickly before we say goodbye?
No, but just go Blue Jays. Can't wait for tonight. You know that I come from baseball genetics here, and we're just nearly over the moon over here, and so tonight will be quite a night. So, go Blue Jays, and thanks so much, Patty, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, okay, baseball background. I mean, your dad, baseball legend. Your brother, pro ball player.
Yeah.
And there you go.
My brother got into AAA, Mike O'Leary, and my dad, of course, had a tryout with the Brooklyn Dodgers out of Corner Brook. So he, in his day, was quite the ticket. And so, I mean, Patty, you know, baseball is something that I've lived and breathed my whole life. And my first job was actually selling hot dogs at St. Pat's Ballpark canteen. So, you know what? I love it. It's exciting, and it's also a really great way for community to come together, right? How exciting, something positive. You know, we hear so much negative news all the time. This is all about community and solidarity, right?
Appreciate the time, Sheila. Enjoy the weekend and the game.
Okay, you too, Patty.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah, I mean, I knew all that. Sean had a try with the Brooklyn Dodgers. Mike played AAA ball. Her brother Sean played varsity basketball, I believe, at St. Mary's. Anyway, let's see here. Let's try to get to a break pretty much on time. When we come back, we're going to talk about the MOU, as we should. And then there's a caller there who wants to talk about the tow truck business. That and more right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Just 1 second. Oh, my. Water down the wrong way. Let's go. Line number 2. Good morning, Perry Trimper. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty.
Good morning. I usually say congratulations to those who've been successful in getting elected or re-elected, but in this case, congratulations on getting out.
You know, it's day 10 of this retirement world, and it's fascinating. I was saying to the producer earlier that you know, you're on such a conveyor belt when you're in the political realm, and then when you step off it, and as I did, you know, voluntarily, it's some adjustment. So I'm on day 10, and I still find myself thinking about issues going on in Labrador and across the province, and then I was reflecting back on my career previously as a consultant. So what I wanted to just put out there, a little thought this morning, is this idea of independent consultants weighing in on the MOU. And, you know, when you think about independence, I guess what Mr. Wakeham and his team have been advocating for is to find people who can provide us expertise, advice on the MOU and its technical complexity and so on. I would argue, and as I argued back in January, that in fact what we want companies with deep understanding, with reputations that they're going to stick by, and that are going to, you know, they're going to put their opinions out there on the table, and they're going to stand by it. I did this previously in environmental consulting for 30 years, and you succeed or you fail based on those predictions and your expertise. So I came into St. John's yesterday to, you know, tidy up my office and clean up, and so when I was talking to some of the PC guys that I know very well and wish them all the best. And we had some discussions about some of these points, and I just said, take good care of this province. You know, we have an opportunity to really change things around, and we have so many biases that I feel we need to put them to the side and say to ourselves, is this a good deal? Let's listen to the experts, and let's make sure that their reputations are solid.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thought about independent review, it makes sense to me. I understand why people are clamoring for it. You know, it's going to be tricky. Like, if it just goes down the path of political appointees, which I think how people consider Mr. Brown and Mr. Wilson and Mr. Bowman, and of course Mr. Wilson resigned from his position at the panel. If it's that, then we're not going to achieve a whole lot, I don't imagine. And then finding someone with the chops and the horsepower and the experience in utilities and this level of contract without a conflict with Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro, the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, Hydro-Quebec, the province of Quebec. Man, who's that? And where are they coming from?
Exactly.
I mean, I hope it happens, but it is going to be needle in a haystack kind of stuff here to come up with a completely reputable agency that has no conflicts. Because if they do, then you can predict the outcome no matter what. If you say, well, they've already done business with Hydro-Quebec, then what do you think they're going to say? The whole pay the piper kind of stuff. So I'm not opposed to the idea, but time is of the essence. Let's get at it. And what exactly were you asking these folks?
Well, thank you. I completely agree. I feel we're preoccupied with seeking out something that I'm not sure if it frankly exists in the minds of everyone, where everyone would feel that kind of comfort. These biases, they creep in constantly. And I would suggest, and as we advocated back in January in the House, there's J.P. Morgan, there's Power Advisor right in front of everyone. Let's put the questions to them. And we did for 4 extensive days. You know, do we need more opportunities to do that? Perhaps. But this I don't know, seeking the holy grail of complete independence, I don't believe it's possible, and I don't think it's going to achieve what we need. What we need is people who know this game and can ask those questions. And frankly, that happened back in January. And I would like to see us just move forward. And I'm not saying at the sake of anything else that's out there and so on, but I would point to these companies and say, informed, reputable, world-class minds were involved, and they're staking their own reputations on it.
As a former member of the party and the government, do you think or would you acknowledge that not going down this road as recommended by Justice LeBlanc in the Muskrat Falls inquiry has become a serious misstep, a huge mistake, especially when the party ran on it in the campaign and, of course, came up short, lost the position as a majority government? And I would suggest, it's not just about the MOU, healthcare, cost of living and all that stuff, but, had we had an independent review announced the day after the MOU press conference at the Rooms, I think the conversation is vastly different. How about you?
Well, I great respect to Justice LeBlanc, but I feel, again, as we've been saying, this word independent, exactly how and where and why do we find this? I'm not sure it's possible. Could we bring in, other members of the party and work side by side and elbows up? I said in the House, and I will challenge this government that's coming in now, that, had I been in that position, I can recall what it was like in those heady days in December just last year. It was a tremendous, if you asked anyone in November of 2024, what is the one economic boondoggle that we'd like to get rid of and shackle off, it would be that deal with Quebec and being able to move forward to 2041 and get forward with the revenues that we so much appreciate and need. And so out it comes. An amazing opportunity, huge dollar signs, $227 billion, and so on. I believe when I looked across the floor at the opposition, they were in shock and surprised. And Kerry's personality would have been one. I can just say this now, of course, but I would have reached across the floor and said, "Well done, Premier. We're very proud of this accomplishment, but to make sure that this is going to be done properly, I'm going to bring the resources of the PC party to the table, and we're going to join you as we go through and go forward and develop those 10 subsequent contracts and make sure they're done right." And I would have been a part of the success as opposed to just drawing on the biases of our province. We have this deep-seated distrust of Quebec. We have this deep-seated mistrust of politicians saying that, hey, here's golden days will shine again and so on. It's those biases that I feel are clouding us right now, and perhaps that even crept into Mr. LeBlanc's own commentary about independence, because I'm not sure it's achievable.
I really don't know, but, every time Quebec is part of the conversation, then it kind of jades the conversation in some respects. Like, for instance, to say we wanted to get out of the deal with Quebec, which everybody thought and everybody agrees with, look no further than 7 successive court challenges where we came up short every single time. But what we don't do is we don't couch it as what's the benefit for us, as opposed to we need Quebec to lose. And that's not exactly the sentiment. But, if we say, here's what we achieve if we can go from 0.2 cents to 1 cent or 3 cents or 4 or whatever the case may be, paint the positive picture for the province, as opposed to put the boogeyman in there, which just really takes the conversation in a different puts it in a different lane. Same thing with Muskrat. The justification, one of them, was to get around Quebec. And look how that turned out. So if we were just a little bit more focused on what it means for us as opposed to what it means for Quebec and an opportunity to hurt or to harm or to maim Quebec, then we derail stuff. And we do it to ourselves all the time. Geographically speaking, people can like it or lump it. We're going to have to deal with the province of Quebec. Why? There's only one way out, unless we build cables down the long-range mountains and under the strait once again, which would cost, tens of billions of dollars. So the Labrador Trough for mining, transmission out. We can dislike, mistrust the province of Quebec, but geographically speaking, your emotions really don't matter a whole lot. So let's look at this province. Let's look at what we can do. Let's look at what we can achieve versus let's try to, strike a blow against Quebec.
That was perfect. Great words. I was just thinking back to my own role with Turkey. Former adversaries, and here we are, establishing a caribou monument in Gallipoli, holding each other's arms together and celebrating what we can do together, and then all the other relationships that have come out of that. And we need to do the same with Quebec. They've been as much a foe for the history of our province as anyone, And just as you say, there's opportunities, and we have to stop looking at this MOU and saying, well, look what Quebec's getting out of it. Well, of course they're getting something out of it. Otherwise, they'd stick with their 2041 arrangement, and we wouldn't have gotten anywhere in this whole situation. So I was thinking about this last night as I was thinking about baseball and the Blue Jays coming up, and then Sheila's comments right now. We rely a lot on the future of this game, on the fate of every game, on that umpire. And he's human, and what they can do, and certainly is there's a lot of scrutiny, and if they continue to make the calls in the wrong way, they're not going to last long. New York's watching all the time, but anyway, it's just a little analogy I had going in my head last night. So. Yeah,
and I mean, none of what I say is a stamp of approval or rejection of anything. It's just that we have a funny way of beginning conversations around here, and the umpire. Sports is an interesting case study in this kind of stuff, right? Because for me, it's important that Jays win to me. It's not important that the Dodgers lose, right? Like when you play the Yankees and you hate the Yankees, the best part about the Jays beating the Yankees is that the Yankees lost, as opposed to the best part is the Jays won. And I know that's a hair split, but it's a part of how we talk, right? And it really truly is. Anyway, from where I come from. Yeah,
the rivalry between the Canadians and the Maple Leafs, it just goes on. Neither hardcore fan will admit that the other has good players. It's just amazing. Right?
Yeah, that's an outlier for me, because the hell with the Leafs. Yeah. I'm only kidding. Thank you, Perry.
Thanks for the chance.
Appreciate your time.
Patty.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
I get in so much trouble when, speak to the obvious realities of Quebec. We can distrust them, and there's good reason why. There's absolutely every reason imaginable why people have a sore spot or a bad taste in their mouth or straight up distrust Quebec, whether it be about equalization or separation or hydro, whatever the case may be. But to get anything done, I mean, even if we went along with golf, for instance, and didn't partner with Hydro-Quebec and partnered with, pick a company, Fortis, right? Big energy company, big utility. If we were going to, just say, for instance, we're going to build enough transmission to carry over 2,000 megawatts as opposed to the 824 megawatts of firm output at Muskrat, 1,100 more kilometers of transmission down through the long-range mountains, which we've already been told by Liberty Consulting is especially treacherous and poses the risk of extensive brownouts or blackouts. They're talking 60 days in some worst-case scenarios. Then build a maritime link to carry over 2,000 megawatts compared to the 500 megawatts that was built on schedule, on budget by Nova Scotia Power or Emera to the tune of $1.5 billion in decade-old money. So, look, I don't know if the best deal possible is on the table, and I'm not so sure we ever will. People rightfully point out to a bevy of concerns that they have and serious questions that need to be asked and answered. But, I mean, anyway, is it the best deal? I don't know. Let's see here. Let's take a break. When we come back, you stay right there, tow truck. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go. Line number 4. Caller, you're on the air.
Very pleasant morning to yourself, Mr. Williams, and all your staff.
The very same to you.
I wonder, I'm a little nervous making this call because this is outside of my life experience entirely. But I'm no union representative. But I'm just hoping to very politely and harmlessly advocate for tow truck owners and operators in the region of Holyrood and surrounding area. And what it is, it's come to my attention that I hope I'm correct, that, well, of course, police are always in need of tow trucks. That doesn't matter where you are because, accidents just do happen. And they're always in need of tow truck operators, of course, and that's appreciated. And from my perspective, there's respect for the RCMP in Holyrood and appreciation for their service, and I agree. I thought, guys, I could mention this. I'll try advocating for you, and all it is, it seems like perhaps, if I'm correct, there's a lot of the calls, and the need for operators head in one direction, and the other guys in the area, I just wanted to say on their behalf that they'd be grateful and happy to receive a little more of the work. They're they're hurting like everybody in this present environment, and they certainly would be happy to participate more in the work that's required for the tow truck people.
Yeah, so what exactly are you asking for? Sorry?
I'm just wondering, maybe we could, chop the pie into a few more slices and share the wealth and spread it around to a few more operators who are hoping to work. That's all.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Sharing up the pie or the wealth is a good thing. So is the case here that the RNC just has a couple of favorite tow truck operators and they don't spread it around, period? Is that so they're entered into some sort of contract?
That's the feeling that some of the other people in the area who own that business, tow truck operators and owners, their feeling is that they're feeling kind of hurt, that they'd like to be cut in on a little more of the work. And I'm taking my chances calling about this. I'm no union representative or anything, and I hope I'm doing this harmlessly and politely, because there's no disrespect intended to anybody. But we're just hoping, well, maybe I'll speak up about it, and the guys in the neighborhood would love to get a few more calls. That's all.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, if I'm in business and, there's nothing quite like the gravy of entering into a contract with any level of government, which also includes the RNC. So I get that. I mean, that is the essence of gravy, those secure contracts, knowing that the revenue stream will be pretty predictable. That's the blessing for any small business owner. Of course it is. I understand your point.
Of course. Yeah, for sure, and thanks so much for your time, and our appreciation to the RCMP and RNC in the area, and I hope I haven't done any harm, but we sure like to hear a few calls. The guys would love to hear from you. Thanks very much.
Appreciate your call. Thank you.
Great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, of course, if you're, which goes back to a lot of the conversation we're having here about procurement. So on the national front, there's been a bunch of announcements, recently leading into the tabling of the budget, which I guess is scheduled for the 4th of November. We spoke with, what was Joanne's last name yesterday, the chair at the TechNL board? I can't remember her surname right at this moment. But anyway, also talk about procurement. There's going to be huge investments, specifically when we talk about even just defense contracts. If we're on the pathway, what is it, Dave? Brown? Is that what you said? Okay. Joanna Brown, Chair of TechNL. Even on the pathway to 5% of GDP, that's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $150 billion a year. Currently, 75 cents of every single dollar we spend on defense contracts is spent in the United States. Now, they, of course, have capacity for certain facets of military preparedness that we just don't even make here in this country, but there's plenty that we do, especially when we talk about some of the technological advancements. That is all part of modern-day military. So, yeah, government contracts. And I'll throw this out one more time. The optics of the companies that get government contracts is important, and it bleeds into every single conversation we have on the heels of a contract being let, which is why I am totally on side with what Jim Dinn has to say about campaign finance reform. It's out of control. It is so desperately needed and so long overdue that we're fools not to push forward. All right, let's keep going a little bit more pleasant. Let's talk about the annual Collision Clinic Enriching Lives car giveaway with Donnie Cody on line number 1. Donnie, you're on the air.
How are you, Patty? And yes, care is part of the equation, my man, so you're not wrong.
I love this program.
Yes, thank you so much.
Back in the day when we were doing some Out of the Fog, we'd cover it every year, and we'd always get some pretty pleasant feedback on it. But give the folks the bare bones of what exactly this is.
Absolutely. Well, this is the 22nd year that Collision Clinic, an incredible company, locations, and a bunch of community partners get together, fully restore a reliable automobile, give it to someone in the community in need. The stories every year are incredible. They're on the website. And to see the families and the deserving recipients of the gift of reliable transportation, it's a moment that it starts the holiday season for all of us every year. And it's an incredible community effort that so many folks come together for. And applications are on now until November 4th.
Another November 4th date. Do you happen to have at the tip of your tongue or fingers an example of some of the families on the receiving end of some of these refurbished and reliable vehicles?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Like, as an example, just last year alone, we were able to all come together, and the amount of hours that the collision clinic staff puts into restoring these vehicles and everything that goes with it is incredible. And so a family deserving applied. Marsha, George, Natalie, Kyle, and Emily got a fully restored and reconditioned 2023 Nissan Qashqai, including the first year of vehicle insurance and a whole bunch of gifts besides. And so that's an example of a family. They wrote in, the information that you would submit is not crazy. You have to give a reason about what the gift of reliable transportation would mean for you and your family. And those stories are reviewed by an incredible group behind the scenes at Collision Clinic who get together. And it's a really hard job because, the gift of reliable transportation in this economy at this time in life for so many is in so much in need. And so it's a real heartwarming experience to really hand over those keys and to see that happen and to see Collision Clinic do such work to make that happen for 22 years.
Yeah, I know the folks up at Collision Clinic. It is an extremely heartwarming and life-changing event when the keys of the new car is put in the hands of the family that needs it and has been evaluated to be the neediest or whatever, however they do it. I'm not sure what the check boxes look like there, but it's a great piece of news. So give the folks whatever details they need to, either submit an application for being the lucky recipient or whatever else we need to know.
Well, absolutely. You can check out the stories that we have been able to tell over the years on collisionclinic.com. You can fill out the application under the Enriching Lives tab until the end of the day, November 3rd. And so it'd be great for you guys to pop on, check out the stories, see the deserving folks, and see how incredible the gift of reliable transportation truly is here in the Avalon, and that Collision Clinic makes that happen.
Congrats to the good folks at Collision Clinic, and thanks for telling us about it this morning, Donnie. Appreciate your time.
Have a great weekend. Thanks, my man.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye. That is a really, really pleasant event. And, we'd go out and cover it back when we were doing Out of the Fog, and there would be a lot of teary eyes in the garage. There would be, for the obvious reasons. Just a couple of quick notes. So, sticking with the UC MOU, lots of feedback coming in, and we appreciate it. What we don't know about what the ongoing negotiations include is some of the issues that may indeed rear their heads into the future. Number one, like I mentioned off the top, the anticipated next wave of lists of major projects in the so-called fast-track platform that the federal government's talking about, and Gull is one of the ones that people have put on that list. If Gull was part of the major projects list and had some support, because it's hard to even know exactly what they're talking about on that front. So the major project office, is it simply about approvals and releases from environmental assessments, or is there also the possibility for federal government money? Because that would change things. If it's all about what we get, what they get, if the feds are involved in any form or fashion with money, then that really does have to enter into the negotiations. Same thing goes on the Quebec side, because they have been actively and openly lobbying for money for transmission capacity in Quebec. If that happens, that changes the conversation. Again, it might be a conversation as old as John Diefenbaker, but if there's ever such a thing as an East-West energy corridor as proposed, half-heartedly albeit, but proposed by the Prime Minister, that would see the free flow of power or at very low tariff, that changes the conversation. It really does. So all those things, are they being considered in the negotiations? I don't know. And we're not going to be privy to blow by blow about how that looks, but those things do potentially change exactly what is included in the MOU. Right? Right. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go. Line number 2. Paul, you're on the air.
Hey, Paddy. How are you doing today?
Grand today. How about you?
That's good. That's good. It's Friday for you. Hey, boy.
'Tis that.
Yeah, and the game is on tonight. Paddy, what I wanted to call you about, I'm, you know yourself, I'm a local taxi driver here. I just want to let the public know, I don't know if you've seen it or read it or if you already brought it up on your show. I've been busy outdoors all week. I haven't been listening much. I've been out putting the patio on the house here. But anyhow, there's a new, I seen it on the news. I got the tail end of it. I'm not sure if it was Global now or CNN. There's an Uber scam on the go. So what they're doing, I just want to let the people know who use Uber, which I wish they didn't, and they use a local taxi, you know that. But anyhow, for the people that are using Uber, including yourself when you travel, I know you do. You said that on open air, and it is what it is. I guess the scam is, I've looked it up and I've read it. It's on, if you Google it and just Google Uber scams, it'll give you all the information on what they're doing. And the people who are using Uber, I wish they stopped. But if you're going to keep continuing to use it, maybe you should read this. It says that just before your ride shows up, you get a phone call. The app has been hacked. Now, apparently, Uber are linked with like Amazon and McDonald's and all those apps, and they've been compromised in the past, and there's been on the news about it anyway. So they've hacked the Uber app, and what it is, they phone your number just before your ride shows up, and you answer your phone, and they tell you that they have a new company policy that you need to give them your cell phone number and your verification number for your code. They say, and then when you ask them why, I guess whatever the case may be, they tell you it's a new company policy. So, it's almost believable, because you order an Uber and the driver phones you and tells you this is a new company policy. So you figure, well, this is the way it's going for my security or my purposes. So once you give them that information, your cell phone number and your verification code, they get access to your credit card information. Yeah. Because in order for you to book an Uber, you have to book it prepaid on a credit card, right? So this is what's on the go. I just wanted to let the people know that are out there using Uber. If they're going to continue using them, like I said, I wish they didn't. I wish they used local taxi companies, because we're here, we have buildings here, we have office staff here. We're losing drivers, we're losing office staff, we're losing dispatchers, we're losing jobs. And again, it's like I said to you before, if they had to do everything we had to do and have to pay for everything we have to pay for, and it was across the board competition, not a problem. But when you can walk here and grab a set of keys and jump in your own car and go on and not have to do anything, it's kind of disheartening.
Let me just add to the new scam. I read this story yesterday. I actually meant to speak to it this morning, but kind of forgot. So it can be very, very real looking and sounding. And you're right, the verification code gives access to everything, including your credit card information. Some of the messages that people are receiving on top of the phone call even have a picture of your driver. So it looks like, well, this must be real. This is the picture that I got in my app when I said, John is going to show up in a black Nissan, whatever. And they can send you that picture on top of the phone call. So of course people are being bamboozled. But Uber has said, and I know you're a local cab guy, and I take local cabs. Sometimes when I travel, I take an Uber. But Uber does not call, text, or email you to request your password, your verification code, or your banking details ever. So, like everything else in this world, if someone calls unprovoked looking for personal information that can link anywhere near close by your banking information, your credit card information, just don't do it. Like, suppose you got to call a cab. Do not fall for this stuff. Every single time someone calls or texts or emails looking for that personal information, well, 99.9% of the time, it is a scam.
Yes, I agree with you. But if you don't call Uber, you haven't got to worry about the scam, do you?
Fair point.
Right?
Yep.
So, and then I'll throw another thing in there too. I can congratulate Danny Breen. He got back in as mayor, and I know you had him on your show there a while ago. And the first question you asked him, what do you think about Uber? Do you think they should have to do? Now, Danny agreed with you. He said that, now this was before the election, he agreed with you. He said, yes, he said, I think that the ride-sharing drivers that are in St. John's or Newfoundland, Labrador, or wherever, in the province, put it that way, they should have to do everything that a taxi driver should do. Now, him getting voted back in, I'd like for Danny, and I know he's listening, I'd like for him to try to do something for us, for the taxis, because all our fees are paid at City Hall, where he works and he runs. So everything that the taxi driver does goes through City Hall, your stickers, your licenses and all that, and your personal information, your criminal background checks, your vulnerable sector checks. It all goes through City Hall. So it's keeping people down there employed. You got taxi inspectors, you got people that look after that stuff. So if that stops, he's going to be in the same boat as the taxis. They're going to lose staff. They're going to, they're going to lose jobs. They're going to lose staff. And if he wants the ride-sharing drivers to do it. Maybe he can put his 2 cents in. And now that the PCs are in, I'm just waiting to see who's going to be digital minister, because I never got anywhere with the Liberals, with Sarah Studley or Elvis Lovelace. I never even got a return phone call. And it was like you said before, it might not be the call you want to hear, but at least you got a call. And so whoever gets in now with the PCs, I'm going to approach him as soon as they get set up. And I'm going to ask him to have the ride-sharing drivers, and I'd like for the taxi drivers to also comment on it if they can. I'd like for them to, put their 2 cents in up at the Confederation building, put their 2 cents in at City Hall, and let these people know that we're losing jobs. Paddy, since April, and I'm just going to use it, and there's not a plug for Jiffy Cabs, it's for everybody, and I know the other companies, Citywide, Bogdan's, and Newfound, they're all losing drivers. The Gulliver family are friends of mine. And I mean, they're all losing drivers left, right, and centre. There's cars getting parked. And when cars get parked, office staff, dispatchers go. So since April of 2025, excuse me, at Jiffy alone, there's been 40 cars taken off the road. You have a day driver, a night driver, and a weekend driver. Most of them do, 3 drivers. So, you do the math. There's 120 drivers, and that's families. I know some of these guys, like I told you before, there's a few of my buddies that are gone to Alberta to work and everything else, left their families here. There's other ones since April I've been talking to. I'm after having to drive them to the food bank, Paddy. And they were drivers at one time, can't find work. And that's all they ever done for 25 and 30 years, drive cabs. So, it's hurting everybody. If Uber and the ride-sharing companies that are in St. John's, if they have to do the same thing as the taxi drivers, the insurance, the criminal background checks, the vulnerable sector checks, the first aids, the defensive drivings, and all that, I guarantee you they won't be around too long once they get the expenses coming back at them.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, not to defend Danny Breen or anybody else, but for anything like this to change requires provincial legislation, because that's how it was enabled in the first place, was through legislation. So whether or not the Tories are going to act on anything that you suggest or request, I guess remains to be seen. But I suppose that's on my list for the various ministers once we're told who the ministers will be and once the government is sworn in, which I don't know when that's going to be. It should be sooner than later. I appreciate the time this morning, Paul. Thanks for doing it.
Paddy, could I just say one comment to that and I'll let you go? Yeah, sure. Quickly. Danny Breen was the one who lobbied, and all the city hall down there, like Sheila O'Leary and all the rest of them. They were the ones that lobbied to bring those guys in. They lobbied the provincial government to change the Highway Traffic Act, which they did, so they can lobby the provincial government to change it back.
They can, absolutely.
Yeah. You have yourself a good weekend, buddy, and enjoy the game.
Thanks very much. Same to you, Paul.
All right, take care, buddy. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Look, and I see, once again, in the corner of my eye, someone says to Google taxi scams. Look, the unfortunate reality is everywhere you look and lurking around every corner is the possibility for a scammer to be on the other end of the text or the call or the email, whatever the case may be. My overarching advice to myself, and you can take it or leave it, obviously, is don't fall for any of this stuff. If someone is calling or texting unprovoked, saying they request your personal banking information or your social insurance number or your credit card information or access to your computer, just don't do it. I mean, you might feel the pressure. Some of the scams are very, very real feeling and looking, but let's just say it's your bank and they call and say, well, it's RBC or whatever and we need X, Y, and Z. Hang up and call the bank. You got their number. Call, they'll know whether or not they were actually trying to reach you or not. Supposing they get mad at you for hanging up on them, who cares? I'd rather someone be mad at me than check my bank account and I'm short 10 grand. I wish I had 10 grand. All right, let's get to the break. We'll make it back. Plenty of time left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning to Kelly Pafford with Faith Haven Animal Shelter up in Wabush. Good morning, Kelly. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you this morning?
I'm okay, thank you. How about you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm just calling about a dog that we have here in our community. He's well known here in Lab West. His name is Willie, and he's a doodle mix, and he was found up on the side of the highway there, side of Fairmont, about 20 or 30 minutes from town. And upon investigation, he came with a microchip and all that. So we did find out who, in fact, he came from. And I just kind of wanted to give a warning to people. We have breeders that come into town, and as a shelter, we follow them closely. we know when they're coming. We know when they're coming with 20 and 30 dogs all packed into a vehicle, and those types of things. So with this particular instance, we kind of put two and two together. We looked at the pictures on this particular breeder's page and realized that it was in fact the dog that we had with us. Now, in the meantime, he was hurt very, very badly, going to need an amputation. He was about 8 weeks old at the time when we got him. And so we have been going forward. We've had conversations with her. And I'm one to record my messages because I find that over the years, I don't want somebody saying, she did this, she black, those types of things. So I do that to protect myself a lot of times. But in that conversation, she did admit that she left the dog there. She did admit that she made no effort to find the dog, posting for help and those types of things, pretty much brushed it under the rug. So I just wanted to call this morning just to let people know and give people an idea of what to look for when they're looking for a dog with a particular breeder. And in my opinion, in our shelter's opinion, if it comes too easy, like if the application process is too easy and the whole experience is too easy and effortless, that's not a good thing. If you've had an easy, time getting the dog and there was no checks on the dog, that's never a good thing. You need the extensive application. You need the home checks. You need to be able to see the moms and dads, especially the moms on their sites, to make sure that there's no overbreeding. You need to be able to ask for genetic testing without being blocked from a particular page. And the biggest red flag of all is when you see 20 and 30 mixed breeds coming down at one time, multiple times a year into a community, and they're basically, in my opinion, passing them out of the trunk of their vehicle, that's not a good thing. And I just want people to be aware of that and ask the important questions. And if you're blocked or if you're completely ignored by asking those questions, then that's going to be your answer.
Yeah. I think this goes for most everything. If it's too easy, there's probably something flawed. There's probably something wrong.
Absolutely. And, and like I said, this particular breeder, she comes down to Lab West, she goes over to Goose Bay, there's another breeder over there. Then I guess because here in Lab West, we only have PAL Airlines, so it's very difficult to put animals on the flights there. But Air Canada is a little bit more flexible, which is a good thing because, we send animals out for medical and stuff like that. So, it's a little bit easier to get the animals to the island, but they're going to Deer Lake, they're going to St. John's. And we just kind of wanted to let everybody know that just be so careful. You can't ignore the dogs. And I always tell people, if it was effortless for you and it's gone to a good home, it's also effortless for the not-so-great homes. They're experiencing the same application and the same requirements as what you are. And that's what's very scary.
It's a fair warning, good cautionary tale this morning, Kelly. How are operations going at the shelter? Because we hear lots of concerns come from animal shelters right around the province.
Well, for us, we're in the process now of opening up a new shelter. We were just awarded about 3 acres of land here by Takora Mines here, and we had a local businessman here that actually helped us purchase some buildings. So we are going to have a facility where we're going to have more than enough space. We're very lucky in Labrador because we don't have the cat colonies, and the weather is just so cold here that I don't think that they would really survive in this type of environment. We see more neglect than we see surrenders, and which makes us very sad.
Yeah, insofar as, the animals and their protection and what have you, I also hear from people in the arena that talk about even just input costs, veterinarian bills, the cost of dog food and cat food and everything else is just so far up that when we have firm reliance on the generosity of people in the area, it's becoming tougher and tougher to do what's required.
Absolutely. And here in Lab West, the housing shortage, I'm sure that's right across the province and right across Canada, of course. So people, we always say that there's no judgment in our shelter. Surrenders, we would rather somebody come in and surrender an animal than to abandon an animal. And for us, if you're couch surfing and if you just don't have a place, I'm not one to believe, that I'll take my dog and I'll live under a bridge or I'll live in a box. That's just not something that you're able to do. Sometimes you have to make such a tough decision, and it's heartbreaking. We see lots of tears from genuinely wonderful people and great pet owners. And, and sometimes they have to make that tough decision. So we see a lot of that here as well. Which is always quite sad.
That it is. Kelly, I appreciate the time and the warnings this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Patty.
My
I appreciate
pleasure.
it.
My pleasure, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
That's Kelly Pafford with the Faith Saving Animal Shelter in Wabush. And, to that end, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, because every now and then when something comes up regarding our pets, then it evokes an emotional response, understandably so. And the one conversation that was happening a couple of weeks ago was about aggressive, in this case, dogs, and the warning about understanding who the breeder is, and especially then when you go down the road to talk about who you get to be the dog trainer. If you go to a trainer that has a reputation for using aggressive tactics, and consequently they churn out aggressive dogs, then that's something you need to go in with your eyes open. Because nobody who wants to, go that extra step of having their dog incur some additional training, nobody wants that dog to come out as a mean-spirited dog and a potentially dangerous dog. So just be careful on that front. And then every time we bring up things like vet bills, I hear it all the time. It's an unregulated industry, and yes, not every vet clinic is created equal, depending on where they are and how many clients they have and the operating costs. But vet bills can be very expensive, which spurred on a couple of days of great email back and forth and a couple of calls on air about the merit of whether you should have pet insurance versus just put money monthly into a pet insurance type of bank account so that you can, stow away some money for a rainy day to cover that vet bill. Or is there an upside to paying a monthly premium for pet insurance? All of those things really get some of the animal lovers and pet owners out there going pretty good. All right, let's check in on the Twitter before we come back. We had a terrible phone connection yesterday with Lee Harvey from the Cormac Bee Company, so we'll rejoin Lee to allow him to finish his thoughts because we really couldn't hear much of anything when we spoke yesterday. Let's see here. We're on the Twitter box or VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Email address is openline@vocm.com. A couple of the things that we brought up off the top of the show really drew the distinct ire of some when we talk about trade with the United States. I can only speak from my perspective, but I want this to go well for us. I don't really, and it's not a zero-sum game here, and all deals, if they're going to be good ones, have to be mutually beneficial. But how and why the trade conversation and negotiations have been completely derailed, I'm not so sure exactly what I said that was inaccurate. If you'd like to point to it versus just call me names, you can call me names all you like. But it's remarkable how all of a sudden, so freely, that people are going down the road of retard. I hate even saying it out loud, and I apologize, but how did we arrive at a place where all of a sudden that's the comeback? It doesn't really add a whole lot to the conversation, but I think it says more about the people who say it versus anyone that they're yapping at. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, Lee Harvey with the Cormac Bee Company, then you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning, Lee Harvey with the Cormac Bee Company. Lee, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Morning to you. Welcome back.
Good. Nice to be back. I'm currently at the Co Cafe on Torbay Road, which is what I was trying to relate yesterday. We're partnershiping with Co Cafe for sweet collaboration. I'll be here until from 11, now until 2. The people taste their different infused honeys, and they're also going to use some of our signature in their signature foods and drink specials. We have honey infused with local partridge berries, local blueberries, local raspberries, and honey butters also infused with the different berries. So pretty excited about this. It certainly connects the West Coast with the East Coast, which is something that needs to happen. The problem here on this island is getting the stuff moving across the island, and I hear it a lot from other agricultural people around me, and so it's a great opportunity to, and hopefully it'll get open some eyes and say, hey, we need to move products from east, more so from west to east, and so it's a great opportunity to do this. The collaboration is all about connecting with tech to farm and from east coast to west coast, and we're proud to see our honey from a home in such a creative and community-driven space. And so you started off yesterday asking some questions about local beekeeping, and that's where we ended. So I will be here again until 2 o'clock at the Co Cafe on Torbay Road to answer any kind of questions about honey or beekeeping, and sampling all our different flavors of honey. And so that's generally why I'm calling and answer any kind of questions that you have, because I know you do have some questions about people being nervous of bees and fear about bees, and so I'll gladly answer any questions that you would have.
Yeah, listen, I kind of know the answer to that one, but I hear that all the time. I don't know how anyone could be a beekeeper. I'm afraid of bees. So it's the conversation about hived bees in a formal setting by a beekeeper versus wild bees. So what should people know?
Well, generally, we try to educate the public. Like we do honeybee tours in the summer. And in a lot of cases, people will not wear protective clothing. I bring them over. I let them touch the bees. I let them put their hands on the bees and touch them, and so we can get clear of that whole fear. Because generally, honeybees get a bad name because most times it's wasps that do the stinging because they're very protective. But I work and I don't. I mean, it's not something that I would come out and say, hey, yes, people do have allergies and people do have fears, and yes, if you don't feel comfortable, please wear your protective clothing. However, you get to know your bees, you get to know the temperament. When they're aggressive, when they could be like this time of the year. No, you don't go near your hives because they're protecting their honey. They will sting you, but generally in the summer they're foraging. They're doing their own thing, and when they do sting you, they're going to die. So it's the last thing that they want to do. But us as a beekeeping company, part of our agenda is to educate people on, hey, honeybees are okay, and we hear it all the time. That it's just on a regular basis. Oh, I'm afraid, and by the time they finish our tours, they're like, and we'll give them some taste of honey out of the frame, and so they're. Yeah, so it's up to beekeepers to educate the public on honeybees, because it's relatively new. Beekeeping's been around the island for a long time, but not to the degree that it is now. As you mentioned about homesteaders, and it's homesteading automatically. Almost you got to have a beehive there, which helps for pollination and of course some honey at the end of the year. But it's up to the beekeepers to educate the public and get the fear out of it, because I could have a hive next to you and you would never know, because they're doing their things. As long as you don't put their flight path in front of a next door neighbor, you should be okay.
Yeah, and that's why I asked. I've asked that of beekeepers who are friends of mine, and they spell out very much the same or similar thing to you. There's times of the year where you stay away for the obvious reasons, but there's a built-in, for most people, I can speak for everyone, but there's a built-in weariness about bees, I think, when it comes to the potential to be stung by one. Lee, always appreciate your time. Good luck with your crafts.
Yeah, thanks very much, Betty. Thanks for taking the call.
My pleasure. All the best. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Lee Harvey, Cormac Bee Company. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to Glenn Brown with the Marystown Shipyard Families Alliance. Glenn, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Patty. How are you?
Not bad, you.
I'm calling today about earnings benefit calculations as it pertains to injured workers. When you get injured, Workplace ML calculates your earnings, your pre-injury earnings before your injury. So they collect your earnings supposedly from your employer or Revenue Canada. They then calculate your earnings by probable deductions, okay? EEL, CPP, EI, Newfoundland tax, and federal tax. And then they arrive at a net income, and then they pay 85% of the net. So at the end of the year, they then send a T5007 to Revenue Canada of these net earnings, not inclusive of any of those deductions. So they don't report their calculations to Revenue Canada. So essentially, they go in as net earnings. That's the first stage, the first calculation. So every year after that, they then collect an option C from Revenue Canada. Well, they actually demand it, and each year they recalculate your earnings with the addition of the Consumer Price Index. That's all fine until you get accepted for CPP. So when you get accepted for CPP, they then collect another option C, and then they proceed to do the integration of CPP and EEL. But what they actually do is they collect the earnings that they already submitted under the T005 as net earnings. They then deem them as gross earnings. And then they add your CPP amount. And then they go on to calculate a gross weekly amount. And then they recalculate again with the probable income tax deductions to further reduce your so-called gross earnings to down further again. And then they calculate and take 75% of your CPP, which leaves the worker paying 2 lots of taxes or calculations of taxes on pre-injury earnings. What's even more concerning about that is they also collect the spousal earnings, where the spouse has no involvement in workplace NL. Because most of these, when they get to the option C from Revenue Canada, these taxes are already calculated based on a net claim code. And mostly injured workers have their taxes done out on their marital status, the spouse. So they collect this, and most of these workers have disability tax credits. So I'll just give you an example of how this works. I won't give you the name of the worker, I'll just give you the number. So this person made $35 an hour. He got injured, totally disabled. They calculated him down to the net claim code at just over $1,500. They added Consumer Price Index, collected the option Cs. When he got accepted for CPP, they then deemed the $1,500 and plus as his gross income. They then added the CPP amount from the option C. They then added the probable taxes again, and then further reduced his income down to $1,100. Then they calculated 75% of his CPP and removed an additional $240. And then on top of that, they then create an overpayment for the CPP that he's collected. So I read a statement there by the Federation of Labor yesterday. When after reaching out to the Federation of Labor, citizens rep, I spent 2 hours on the phone with the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner yesterday and the day before. Reached out to the Auditor General. They won't take it on. The Citizens Representative won't respond. The new Premier won't respond. And Workplace NL basically told me contact whoever to deal with this, because they're not going to, right?
Glenn, quick question before we run out of time. So is this calculation different for injured workers versus anybody else, regardless of their revenue stream, like if they are on long-term disability versus workers' comp? Or
absolutely.
It is different. Okay, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. What I'm trying to tell you is that they deem probable, they take pre-injury earnings and they deem probable, not they don't deduct tax, they calculate probable taxes. So they remove that from your income, and they're the beneficiary of that money. They do not provide dictation to Revenue Canada that they have deducted this amount of money from your gross. When it goes under the T500 tax form, it's non-taxable income. Supposedly. So then they sent it to Revenue Canada. And then the following year or the subsequent years after, they then collect the same income and call it a gross earning, and then they recalculate the earnings again as gross, and then take the probable taxes again. So they're the beneficiary. As an injured worker, your pre-injury earnings are indexed every year. So each time they put in those calculations and remove the probable taxes, they're the beneficiary of that money. So they're doing it twice. And they're also collecting the spousal income, which they have no right to, and they're using the spousal income in their calculations, because there's no excuse here, because the option C explains that I paid taxes, my wife paid the remainder, there's a disability tax credit here. This is all tax-free money. They collect it, the tax-free amount, and they then turn it into taxable money, and they take taxes of it, and there's no record of it.
Okay.
It's highway robbery, right? I'm just trying to let people know that if you were a person in this province that is in receipt of workers' compensation and CPP benefits, you are being frauded on the backs of these people.
Because you deal with it as often as you do, you have a much better grasp than I do, but that sounds very confusing, but it also at the same time sounds pretty unfair. I mean, when we're talking about a group of people as injured workers, Glenn, I have to get to the news break here now. I'm late for it, but Dave wants me to put you on hold. He needs to speak with you, okay?
Yeah, just one thing that we asked for an audit of this, right? Independent audit of these calculations, and I guess we're going to have to go and get it done ourselves. But we need someone to speak on this. And thanks again, Patty, for your time.
I appreciate yours. You're on hold. You'll speak with Dave. Let's get a break for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Gary, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, Patty. How are you today?
Doing okay. How about you?
Good, sir. Good. This is actually my 5th time calling you, all on the same subject and all exactly 1 year apart. I wanted to make your listeners aware of a fundraiser that we have coming up in Marystown this coming Sunday. It's sponsored by the Friends of Daffodil Place, Burin Peninsula, and all proceeds, of course, go to Daffodil Place, which needs no description. Everyone's aware that it's a home away from home for cancer patients in St. John. And we have a lot of people here on the Burin Peninsula who avail of the services of Daffodil Place. So we'd just like to give back and contribute towards the operation of the facility.
How's the fundraiser operate, Gary? I know because we've spoken 5 straight years, but maybe for the listener.
Okay. It takes the form of a telethon type thing. It's live on Facebook, and you can find it on Facebook at the Friends of Daffodil Place, Burin Peninsula. Just, go to your search and type that in, and it'll take you right there. We're on from 1 until 5 on Sunday afternoon. You can drop by. We're located at St. Gabriel's Hall, right in the heart of Marystown. You can give us a call. We'll have the numbers on Sunday in which you can call. And, of course, a lot of pre-promotion and fundraising have been done already, and a lot of people are lined up. We have a packed agenda for Sunday afternoon for folks, businesses, organizations, individuals, you name it, to come in and make their donations live on the telethon. And of course, we'll be having some entertainment. There will be some prizes. And I'll be one of 3 moderators, along with Fred Dodge and Gary Mosier. And we'll have some stories about visits and stays at Daffodil Place we'll have some stories of cancer battles, some of them with happy endings, some not so much. But this is a very real thing that we're dealing with here, and we'll be looking at all aspects of the emotions, never mind the expense of going through a battle with cancer. So we're looking forward to having a great day on Sunday.
Good on you, Gary. What motivates you to keep it going every year?
This is a project of a very large committee that is spearheaded by two ladies by the names of Cindy Warren and Tara Plank. And they have a large committee comprising of people from around the Burin Peninsula, and this is what they do. Not too long ago, they had a survivors luncheon. This was not a fundraiser. This was just a social gathering for cancer survivors, folks battling cancer now, just to get together and celebrate each other and to try and feel good about, conversing and sharing experiences with other cancer survivors. And they hosted a softball tournament earlier this past summer and various other fundraisers throughout the year. And of course, in various towns on the Burin Peninsula, members of the committee do their own thing with bake sales, et cetera, and it all comes together on Sunday. And in the past 4 years, it's been usually somewhere in the 20s, 24, 25, 26,000 for the day. So we're looking to do at least that much this year, and hopefully even more.
Good on you, Gary. Hopefully it's a roaring success, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. You have a great day and a great weekend.
The very same to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There we go. Good on Gary for the 5th annual call and the 5th annual fundraiser. I've been sent this story many, many times today, and I guess that means people want me to talk about it. It's a new report card from the C.D. Howe Institute. It's looking at different provinces and how they are transparent or not with how they tax and spend and the accounting practices and accountability and all those types of things that we talk about all the time. They call the report Making the Grade, the Fiscal Accountability Report Card for Canada's Senior Governments 2025. So, insofar as the provinces go, at the top of the charts, remarkably, is Quebec, followed by Alberta, with B pluses. This province down the line earned a C. The federal government, not so much. We're looking at a D grade for the federal government. Now, you can read the entire report to get a better understanding what B plus means versus D. But a lot of this kind of stuff here, now the federal government was also tied with Manitoba, Northwest Territories with grades of D. You know, people ask me all the time about some of these pre-budget announcements and the $2 billion for clean tech and all those types of things. Look, this is how it works with budgets provincially and federally all the time, isn't it? We'll get an inkling of what's going to be entailed in formal budgets through the various policy announcements and spending announcements leading up to the actual tabling of the budget. So until we get a look at it in its totality, it's kind of hard to know what's what. You know, we can talk about auto manufacturing leaving for the United States because of tariffs. We can talk about the money spent on clean tech, as they call it. We can talk about some of the defense contracts that have been let in the recent past. But until we get the headline grabbing stuff like debt, and what it means, the deficit this year, which could be $100 billion, we're told, which, I guess we'll all find out at the same time, and what that means for the country's sovereign debt, it's kind of hard to know exactly what to make of it. The biggest thing on the table at this moment in time, if we're talking about the politics and the political machinations of it all, is who's going to support the budget? Because the Prime Minister and the minority Liberals, they need some support here. At least one party has got to vote alongside. Now, Mr. Poilievre, apparently the leader of the Conservative Party, has said he's put his demands forward and, isn't going to reject the budget without getting to see the budget. But I'll be a monkey's uncle if it gets any support from the Conservatives. So then it's the Bloc. And we know the Bloc has said the quiet part out loud again. Their leader, Blanchette, has said, unless it's great for Quebecers, and we know the Bloc MO, that's all they really care about. As long as it's good for Quebec and Quebec-specific spending or investment or policies tailored to their upside, then the Bloc's not going to support it either, which leaves the NDP. And even though they've lost official party status, their votes are enough to secure a confidence motion, which is a budget. So I guess we'll all wait and see, but wouldn't it be a little bit surprising if all of a sudden the NDP wanted to go back to the polls? I'm sure the Conservatives do, and I'm sure the Bloc don't care. But the NDP, given that they look pretty broken at this moment of time on the national stage, what's the likelihood of them not supporting a budget? You know, they say Mr. Davies, who's the interim leaders, well, we don't know yet. Well, they kind of probably do know. I mean, remember, when we get rebuttals from the parties after the budget is tabled, much of that is pre-taped. They've already got their stance on it, and most of it's pretty predictable stuff. Let's take a break here. When we come back, we're speaking with you. If you're in and around town, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break, and then we're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one, segment to the CEO at the Alzheimer's Society of Newfoundland and Labrador. That's Shirley Lucas. Hi, Shirley. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you doing?
Great today. Thank you. How about you?
Good. So I just wanted to kind of make people aware that we're in our last week of our annual coffee break event, and we have over 210 businesses and people in the community participating this year, and it's a great opportunity to spread awareness about dementia so that people know where to turn in their time of need. And as I said, we have 1 week left if people are interested in hosting a coffee break in aid of dementia this year.
What's involved in hosting a coffee break?
Well, they would basically set up their coffee pot and some information on dementia, and people would make a donation for their coffee for that morning.
Sounds good. So, anything else on that? Because I do want to talk about strategies and preparedness to deal with some of the forecasted numbers of Alzheimer's and dementia.
Sure.
Okay, so we see the numbers, and you know, when we talked about, for instance, just aging demographic and what that means for affordable housing, what it means for interaction with the healthcare system, the numbers out there regarding Alzheimer's and dementia into the future are astounding. I know there's been some work done on the federal level and some work done here provincially. Do you think that the roadmap is clear enough to give you some cold comfort that the feds and the province really see what's coming? Because the numbers that your organization produces are off the charts.
Yeah, they definitely are off the charts, and I think that, you know, in Newfoundland and across Canada, the population is aging, and that will contribute to the reasons for some of the higher numbers that is forecasted. And I think that, you know, our researchers internally are doing a better job of trying to capture some of those numbers so that we can be a part of that change in helping, I guess, let government officials know so that they can prepare for it. Will we be prepared for it? I think the numbers are really high, and I think it's going to take a lot of planning to be providing the right services to people.
I don't want to misquote the numbers, but some of the things that we're looking at are, you know, like 187% increase by 2050. I mean, we're talking about some 1.7 million people, or Canadians, living with dementia by 2050. It's somewhere in and around 750,000 now. Is that an accurate number, Shirley?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So it's easy enough for us to say, okay, here's what the numbers are. But being prepared for it, what does that mean, and how should we think about that?
Well, I think we should be prepared in terms of looking at our healthcare systems, whether or not we're going to be able to meet that demand, looking at, I guess, you know, whether or not people can be maintaining it for longer periods at home and providing the right supports and having accessibility to those supports to be able to maintain people for longer periods of time at home, and having, you know, the right facilities in terms of being dementia friendly, you know, whether that's a personal care home or a dementia village or a long-term care facility, being prepared for what those numbers are going to do to our healthcare system, and making sure that we have all staff equipped in terms of being knowledgeable of the disease and enough healthcare professionals to be able to respond to that demand.
I would imagine part of being prepared is also to understand the different kinds of supports that family members and loved ones need, because it's a pretty traumatic road to be on. And I know your organization talks about this a lot. You know, peer support and family support, support groups, advice, what to anticipate or expect once a diagnosis is offered, which sounds easy, but it's not as easy as said as done.
No, it's not easy because any diagnosis of dementia is obviously very challenging to accept that diagnosis and know what's available out there in the community. And that is part of our role in trying to help people be prepared for what services are available to them at this particular point in time, looking into the future as to what they may need in the future, and getting people to prepare for some of those transitions. It's really difficult because it's their loved one who are going through it, and they want to make sure that that journey is the best journey possible for them.
I gave some of the broad stroke numbers regarding, some 1.7 million Canadians forecasted to be living with dementia by 2050. Do we also have forecasted numbers about early onset?
We don't at this particular point in time. We do have some preliminary ones. We are anticipating a new report to come out. We do know the number is increasing in young onset, and we're trying to prepare for those forecasts right now, actually.
Yeah, fair enough. And inside of the caregiver impact, I believe, and you've got all the numbers, we're talking about like 1.5 billion hours by the time we hit 2050 for that. So that adds up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 700,000 jobs. So This is not insignificant stuff that we're talking about into the future. Shirley, anything else on that front you'd like to talk about while we have you?
Well, I guess I just want to communicate to the public that our organization is here to help. We have lots of information and supports and can answer a lot of questions for somebody who is new to the dementia diagnosis, and we are available to help them at any time. And they can certainly just call our office at any time. And
give us the coffee break information again before we run out of time.
So the coffee break is where businesses and people in the community are hosting coffee breaks in aid of the Alzheimer's Society to increase the awareness in the community so that when someone they know is faced with a dementia diagnosis, they know where to call for support.
Oh, this just pops into my head here, and then I'll let you go, is when we talk about healthcare, access to services, there's long been an acknowledged gap between urban and rural in this province and right across the country. I know your organization services everybody wherever they are in the province, but actual, close by proximity to services, how bad is it in rural compared to urban Canada?
Well, there is, I guess, the services vary from different parts of the province, depending on where you live. And in some instances, people are, I guess, relocated depending on if they need long-term care services, if it's not available in their community. So I guess my answer to that would be there's always room for improvement. There's always room to be able to have the person as close to their loved one as possible. And being prepared for what those numbers are going to be in the future so that we can plan for that.
I really appreciate your time, Shirley. Good luck with the coffee break this year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share the message.
Anytime. Thanks, Shirley.
All right. Bye-bye.
Shirley Lucas, the CEO at the Alzheimer's Society of Newfoundland and Labrador. I mean, those numbers are staggering. Between now and 2050, forecasting a 187% increase in the number of people diagnosed with and living with dementia. You can go right to the Alzheimer's Society's web page itself. You can find the report there. I believe the vast majority of the work on that front was done at the School of Medicine at UBC. So if you Google it up and you're interested in finding out a bit more, you can find it there. And then the caregiver impact, which sometimes we don't include in the conversation enough. We're talking about somewhere to the equivalent of like 700,000 jobs inside a caregiver, even if those forecasts prove to be accurate or even close to accurate. That's about 1.5 billion hours a year. I mean, it's not insignificant, to say the very least. Let's check in on the Twitter box for VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com, and there's some aggressive action in there this morning. Bring it on. All right, let's go ahead and take a break for the news. When we come back, we're going to Labrador to talk about agriculture. And then, Cassandra's in the queue to talk about dementia resources, in rural. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the founder of the Food Producers Forum. That's Dan Rubin. Good morning, Dan. You're on the air.
Hey, Patty. Good to talk to you, as always. And thank you for that discussion before the break about such an important topic, thoughtfully explored and presented. Of course, I'm calling to talk about food supply in this province, which we've been working on for the last 7 years through Food Producers Forum and Nonprofit Society. Okay. I've got some good news and I've got some bad news today. So let's do the good news first. 3 items for your listeners. The first one is that, and this is action on the part of Food First NL, they've just launched a digital food hub for ordering food, local food online. It's called the Avalon Food Hub. It's up and running, and you can find it online. And these are all kinds of local agricultural products and manufactured products and healthcare products, all local. And you order them online, and then you pick them up in Pleasantville. And they're working on a distribution network for it as well. Really good news in terms of direct marketing of food, right?
Absolutely.
The second thing is that during the election campaign, we put out a policy document. I think I called you about this, to all 3 political parties. And we have in hand now an extremely strong and detailed letter of commitment from the Premier, from Tony Wakeham, about the issues that we raised, saying that he's ready to move mountains and get things done and clear the decks to better support farmers and home food production in the province. And so we'll be moving forward with that as an organization in the new year. And the third one to tell you about is that the project that I led over the last 2 years, the Provincial Food Network, is now fully registered as a provincial cooperative. And we'll be welcoming farmers and food producers and home gardeners and basically anybody who cares about food here, good, local, healthy food, and taking action to support and expand that through advocacy, knowledge sharing, mentorships, promotion of local food. So that's the Provincial Food Network, Community Service Cooperative, and if you're at all interested, I'm saying this to the listeners, email foodproducersforum@gmail.com, because we're just getting the thing set up, but it is now registered.
Excellent.
So much for the good news.
A couple of quick things there.
Go ahead.
Insofar as the Premier's written commitments to what?
To act in specific ways. I could read bits from the letter, but I think it's probably more appropriate if I just say he has identified a number of actions, including forming a committee to really look at food policy that includes a full range of stakeholders, and also to improve the farm loans and equipment access, a bunch of stuff.
Okay,
yeah.
So that's the good news.
Very specific commitments, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd like to see it, and I don't know if you'd like to share, that would be terrific, is just even via email, but I suppose I can also get that information from the Premier's office. And co-op.
That's right. I will check and see if it can be shared. I have been sharing it within our circle, but I was stunned, frankly, by the degree to which he really understands the problem and has responded to the policy initiatives that we've put forward to really encourage more food production locally.
And that's one of many things, good things that have come from the Food Producers Forum, is because I think some of the food, whether it be food security or food insecurity, we kind of misuse those labels every now and then, but it's the understanding of the issue that seemed to be lacking, is certainly in the political arena.
Well, what happens with a lot of things is we have buzzwords, we have myths. You know, you can't grow food here. That's one of our terrible myths, because you can grow it all here. Maybe not peaches, unless you're in Pooch Cove, but you know what I mean. But the thing about food security is it's just a phrase, and it has a definition, but it kind of is a smokescreen. You have to dig in and get down to the real issue, which is the loss of farming, the capacity that we have, new technology like hydroponics, we've talked about that, and particularly the role that home food producers play. When we did our survey in 2022, out of the 6.2 million pounds of food that the 742 people who answered the survey were growing, 441,000 pounds was coming from backyards and hunting and fishing and foraging. But let me get on to the issue of the day. I got a call this morning from Tom Angiers. Now, Tom Angiers is a 9th-generation Canadian farmer who's been farming in Goose Bay, Labrador for the last 30 years. And without getting into the details of his story, He's producing the largest crop in Labrador history, and he's also importing really good quality food from Montreal, and we helped him buy a 25-ton truck to deliver that food down the coast all the way to the Quebec border, and he's flying that produce by plane to Natwashish and Blacktickle and places in the north. So he's a critical part of restoring food security and healthy food, particularly for the Indigenous communities in Labrador. Okay. So he, for the very first time this year, applied for the wage subsidy program that will match the employer's contribution to hire people to work for a business. And his business, of course, is farming. So he brought in a Ukrainian couple from Ontario to work on his farm, and he applied for the wage subsidy. And he called me practically in tears this morning. He's been turned down. And the reason they turned him down was that he began employing them before the application was received by the province. But in fact, he has a letter saying, from when he applied, saying that he could employ them as soon as he applied. So what they're doing is they're niggling about the difference in the dates between the date he sent in the application and the working day they received it. And on that grounds, they denied the whole application, and he's screwed having paid these people. And what does he do now? Lay them off? Do you see what I mean?
I do.
So it's another example of the bureaucratic nightmare that happens. Somebody in an office somewhere took it upon themselves to make this decision, and simply put, it ain't right. And how do we generate food security if that kind of stuff is going on? So he's in a pickle. He needs help. I put him onto his MHA, his newly elected MHA, but it's one of those stories that when you hear it, you just go, oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, bureaucratic, sometimes it's the red tape, sometimes it's the timeliness, the time and the effort and the money it takes to get through the bureaucracy. But more often than not, it's left hand, right hand, being in two different buildings, in two different universes sometimes, not knowing what either's doing. And consequently, people with all the right intentions to solve critically important issues have to swim upstream unnecessarily all the time. Before I run out of time, I do want to just dig in on the co-op for a second. I mean,
sure.
Co-ops, they have a distinct upside. I'll get your perspective as to why it's an upside for the Food Producers Forum, but like things like co-op housing. We talk about the housing crunch, but we don't talk enough about co-op housing. Even though the federal government money now does include support for co-op housing, co-ops in the banks, co-ops in the fishery. How does it work, and what's the upside for your group?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the housing, because at the very same time that our registration has gone through for the Provincial Food Network Co-op, George Lee, a guy who's been associated with the FOGO process and MUN extension, an elderly man who's working with immigrants and immigrant investment, has just launched a cooperative to build more houses using the investment coming from overseas. And co-ops, like any kind of organizational thing, take some real leadership and need to be well organized. But we've got some wonderful leadership already accumulated from the project that I led over the last 2 years. And the wonderful thing about this co-op is it's an organization for everyone. All it takes to join is you care about food, because we've learned through the work that we've been doing in the last 6-7 years, that when you get everybody around the table and you have a diversity of backgrounds and knowledge, you can do amazing things because of that combination. And so the co-op will bring together people who are growing food. We're in partnership with the Federation of Agriculture, fully encouraging and supporting the idea that people join the Federation if they're commercial farmers. But there's so many people out there, young people moving into farming, a great program that the Federation is running, NL Young Farmers, training them and supporting them. But we've talked about this. Food supply is the real issue, not food security in abstract forms. And everybody has a role to play in it. And the co-op, the new co-op, the PFN co-op, will be the vehicle to bring people together and use their skills to change policy, support farmers, support food growers, and clear the decks at the municipal level where there have been so many problems. Very hopeful. That's what you're talking about, right? The power of co-ops, right?
Yeah, I mean, it
because
used to be
from the people, by the people. Yeah,
exactly right. And there's a lot of benefits to be shared amongst the many versus reaped by the few, which is probably a good way to move forward on a variety of fronts. Dan, appreciate the time this morning as usual. Thanks for the call.
Thanks. And if there's anybody out there who can help Tom deal with this mess, he's Spruce Meadow Farms in Labrador, in Goose Bay, and you can find him online. He needs some help getting this turned around because it's not right. Thank you for the time, Patty.
Anytime, Dan. Stay in touch.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye. Dan Rubin, founder of the Food Producers Forum. Final break of the morning and the week. When we come back, Cassandra's going to talk about the dearth and dementia-related resources in rural. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Cassandra. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. I just heard the Alzheimer's Society come on and talk about rural resources, and certainly I wanted to just have a conversation with you around the lack of rural resources and the need for the province to kind of identify some innovative and creative solutions to keep people at home for as long as possible.
Let's dig into what the reality is now for access to dementia-related resources in rural. What do you have access to?
It's very, very limited. So I've been working in rural health for the last 13 years. And, of course, our rural population is the fastest aging population in Newfoundland and Labrador, with Newfoundland and Labrador being the fastest province, aging within Canada. So right now there's very, very limited community activities that individuals can attend, as well as any support groups or support systems within rural context, along with a number of other, barriers. Dementia care is a significant wicket problem. It's very complex, and it includes multiple systems within society. But definitely there is some solutions that the province can trial and, to meet and support individuals to age in place.
Such as, because when you talk about innovative solutions, some people's minds might go down like virtual care, which might not necessarily do the trick to try to keep someone in their home as long as possible when we talk about Alzheimer's or dementia. So what are you referring to regarding innovative approach?
So utilizing recreation and leisure and recreation therapy as an approach within the community to support individuals to age in place. So developing programming in collaboration with towns and municipalities to utilize their spaces a little bit more, to develop these programs and run these programs for the population, to attend, to ensure that, individuals have the opportunity for socialization and appropriate activities that meet their particular needs and skill set. Of course, we all know that dementia is a degenerative disease, and it's a progressive disease, and it's a devastating disease, not only for the person, but more so for the caregivers and the families that surround that person. And to develop those resources and to ensure that people have the right resources around them to maintain their functioning and their quality of life for as long as possible. Right now, my role is a recreation therapist within the Community Supports Program, and I'm one of 2 in the province, and the feedback that I'm getting from clients now is phenomenal. And what I do as a rec therapist, I go in and I assess and I plan and I modify activities for individuals to enjoy again and, experience pleasure, and to stimulate them, cognitive stimulation and physical stimulation, to ensure that they can maintain their overall health and well-being for as long as possible, while improving the connections between caregivers and individuals living with dementia, throughout their care journey as well.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking about access to resources for people who are diagnosed and living with Alzheimer's and dementia, part of the conversation we had with Shirley Lucas was also about caregivers. And I can imagine it must be a similar dearth of resources in the world when we talk about caregiving and caregiver support as it is for the individual.
And of course, as we all know, access to specialized services in rural Newfoundland is very limited. We do have, some specialized teams come out on occasion. However, that is very limited in itself. And of course, caregivers really need to be the ones centered on this, because it's their resilience and their health that's going to keep these individuals in their communities for as long as possible.
Yeah. Cassandra, I think we can probably expand this healthcare-related conversation we're having about Alzheimer's and dementia to just about every facet of rural healthcare, period. And I mean, I know that the country is urbanizing at a pretty quick pace, but that doesn't mean all of a sudden politicians, political parties, and governments can, not acknowledge the continued needs in rural parts of the country. And I mean, I think we can all admit that healthcare delivery will look different into the future insofar as where people are going to be able to go to major clinics and see specialists and have the top quality diagnostic work done. But still, people still live in rural Canada. And to ensure supports are still there, and they may dwindle over time just based on population shift, but it's still a real thing. And I'm not so sure people understand that necessarily.
And a lot of people don't necessarily understand recreational therapy either, but if you think about what you do in your free time and what you enjoy in your free time and how that relates to your overall well-being and health, it's significant. It's significant to your identity. It's significant to your physical health, your psychological health, your mental health. And if those activities are taken away from you from disease or illness, that has a huge impact on your health and well-being moving forward.
No question. Cassandra, I really appreciate making time for the show this morning. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, that was quick. So when speaking with Shirley Lucas, and then we took a break for the news, I'll paraphrase a couple of emails saying, why do I guess they were addressing me, is why do I have the propensity to put out these types of numbers that can only make people worry? It's not the intention. It's not try to make anyone fearful, but the fundamentals are preparing what's next. I mean, just think about it. Politicians do a lot of knee-jerk work, right? Something happens, and then we react. And in the world of things like regarding healthcare access and the forecasted numbers of dementia and Alzheimer's, my purpose for putting it out there is not to make anyone afraid for what's coming next, is to make politicians think. Because ultimately, we will rely on governments to be prepared. Families are always going to have that built-in worry and that knot in their stomach that healthcare might diminish for themselves or their loved ones into the future. But ultimately, to receive any of that care for one diagnosis or another, the responsibility lies with the government. So that's 100% the purpose of talking about things like that, is so that politicians get it on their radar. Politicians and their public policy and the focus of public policy and the spending of taxpayer money does something to acknowledge what we see coming. Because that's what we do, especially when we talk about healthcare. We react, and sometimes after the fact. Look no further than the doctor shortage or the problems with access to primary care. This has been percolating for years and years, and yet here's where we are. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again on Monday morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer David Williams, I'm your host Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy weekend. Talk Monday. Go Jays. Bye-bye.